All right, this is Amber. Hello, everybody. Namaste. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sadhana. Welcome to Creator Stories number 2. I'm here today with Akal Pritam, the creator of Self-Love, the book. This beautiful book here. And Amber apparently is going to be with us today too. And Self-Love, the Oracle. And the beautiful, amazing mini card decks, which I have shown on my channel a couple of times, Let Go and Inspired by Frida. And we're going to be talking about all of these things, as well as yoga, chakras, self-love, self-healing, and all this kind of stuff. So I want to hand this over to Akal and just ask her to spend a few moments introducing herself and just giving us a bit of background about where you come from, where you grew up, where did you live as a child, where are you now, that kind of stuff. So thank you and welcome, and thank you so much for being here today. I'm just honored to chat with you.
Thank you for inviting me, Sadhana. It's beautiful. I'm an Australian, and I was born in country Victoria, which is quite a cold and warm place, like very hot in summer and cold in winter. But my parents moved to Melbourne, which is one of our major cities in Australia, down south. And I lived there for over 50 years. And then I moved up north to a temperate place called Mullumbimby, which is very much where my heart aligns, and I wonder why I never quite made it here before. It's a very beautiful place. It's in the hinterland, so it's on the coast, and then there's really large mountains, which is part of a really large mountain range. And near us is a really large mountain that is Mount Wollumbin, which is said to be the crown chakra both ways up and down this mountain range. So it's number 7 from the bottom up, and from the top it meets here. And the ocean here is magical. There are lots of dolphins. The whales pass very close through the bay here, so there's a lot of that energy, very Lemurian kind of feel to it. It sort of feels almost like it's in a triangle with New Zealand and Hawaii in this beautiful energy field. Just a very magical place. Quite a contrast to where I grew up in a city with a very traditional Victorian English background, a lot of law, a lot of traditional education. Not a lot of that resonated with me. I have been an artist all my life, so I tried to find my groove, and I went into commercial art for quite a long time, trained as a graphic designer and became an art director. Worked on fashion for a very long time, travelled around the world doing that with photo shoots and things like that, and it was very corporate, very full on, but it was never me. Went through a real awakening when I had children and couldn't go back into advertising after I had children. They just didn't resonate. Wanted to practice the continuum with my daughters at least for the first 3 years, so I worked from home. And so I had done a little bit with publishing, so I went back into publishing and I worked in children's books. And fortunately, when I teamed up with a publisher and I had known from some work experience back at college, we managed to put out a really good publication. It really hit the market in a sweet spot, and that worked out really well for me, which really helped me to support my children because I was a single mother by that time. And then I met my partner years after that, who I'm with now, and we eventually created a business together called The Dispensary, which was a wellbeing cafe and store. And with him, we made everything. So it was we had just drinks and beverages. It was vegan, raw, organic, and then we made soaps and teas and gifts and cards and all sorts of things. And I ran workshops, and I kept getting asked by our beautiful customers, like, when are you going to put out a book? When are you going to put out a book? And I was like, oh, publishing again. Like, I'd really stepped away from publishing, particularly after the recession and publishing a pullback. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it just kept coming up and coming up and coming up. And then our customers kept going, you guys should be in Byron Bay. And I'm going, I've actually never been to Byron Bay. I've been to a lot of places in Australia, but never Byron Bay. Cut a long story short, we ended up coming up just for a weekend, and I said, okay, we're moving. So we went back to Melbourne, sold our store, much to our customers, even the ones that said we should be in Byron Bay, they were really shocked. And we sold it and moved up here, and I started working on self-love. And it had been something stirring inside of me for a really long time. And that took about 3 years to create, so it was pretty huge. A lot of healing for myself in that time. And yeah, since then I've just built on what I've been doing. So I've just, everything sort of fell into place. My yoga practice really increased. I was doing yoga a lot in Melbourne, and a daily practice, but I really went very deeply. I started practicing, started properly, and became very, very committed to it. It really wove into my life a lot deeper, and yeah, I've just gone on from there. And we love living up here. It's really beautiful, and so that's kind of, now I'm on this journey where I'm just creating these. And I sort of try and step away from publishing. I just get put back into it all the time. I can't help myself, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Wow. So what point in your life did your yoga journey begin? Actually, before I get you to answer, I'm just going to say hi to everybody who's here. And I want to say hi to Becca Marie. I haven't seen you for ages. Becca Marie is a fellow Reiki master who I actually met in the beautiful town of Hana in Maui. And so it's so special. I'm so happy that you're here. So I'm just going to scroll back up. So hi, Michelle and Kyle Liz. Welcome, Jen and Iridescent Sea, Fairy Wren Whispers. So great to have you here with us today. And if you, I am on StreamYard, so if you do have questions, please put them in caps. I will not see them if you tag me in them. You don't get the orange highlight when you are on StreamYard. So yeah, so put your questions in caps and we will get to all of that. So what I wanted to ask you was, where did the yoga journey begin? Were you a teenager? Were you in your 20s or later in life?
Later in life. And that again, kept coming up for me. And it was very far. As far as exercise went, particularly when I worked in advertising, even up to even through pregnancy, I ran. So I literally, I was running from a lot of things, I think. And so I'd get up early in the morning and I would run, and I would just get into this meditative place. And we lived by the bay, so I'd run down to the water, and I would see dolphins in that bay as well. And that would be my saving grace, really, to get through the life that didn't make sense to me. And then I started to get more and more injuries, which really caused me to slow down. So I touched on yoga, but I'd sort of always pulled back from it. I'm trying to remember. It's quite a long time ago. So it would have been late 30s, I suppose. So like a while. I've been practicing now, like over 20 years, I suppose.
And so you came to yoga through the physical practice?
No, it was deeper than that. I was avoiding yoga because of the nature of it. Like I had a real aversion to it, mainly because of my family and their disapproval of such things. And I was really in this situation where I felt very torn, because I love them tremendously, yet every time I sort of came to more of this spiritual awakening, they would shut it down quite seriously, and they really meant it. Like, it was not cool for them that I practice yoga or become more spiritual. And so it was really like what I needed to do, but it also then meant saying goodbye to them. Like, I had to eventually make a decision. They wouldn't let me sit with both. So I had to make a decision.
Wow. Yeah, when you say your family, you mean your parents?
Mm-hmm. And my brother.
And your brother.
Yeah.
And so did you grow up?
Pardon?
Did you grow up in like a family with an organized religion, like a fundamental religion?
No, they were atheists, very strong atheists, but they sent me to a Church of England school. It was just such, my father came from the Freemason lineage, so he was very secretive about what his beliefs were. But it blew me away. I actually never understood that at all. I couldn't understand that, because I seemed to come with a completely different neurology, that it was okay to be who you were. And particularly if you're practicing something for yourself and not harming someone else, how was that wrong, right? And how was it any of their business, yeah? But there's a control element to that, which is very real. And it's saying, you know, in the beautiful sort of white suburban Australian place that we grew up, that was normalized, that, you know, limiting and controlling was actually part of the whole psyche of the family in many levels. And since then I found some incredible deception and betrayal that I just couldn't have even imagined it. I just couldn't even be bothered trying to dream up some of the schemes that went on to control the women in the family. But it's just how they rock.
Wow.
And it blew me away. It's because it's real. Like, I'm like, hello, where are we living now? You know, burn her.
What century are we living in? But you know what? Your father was privy to some sacred spiritual teachings, and the potential for you to have connected was there.
Yeah.
And he chose not to.
Yeah, I know. And he passed away recently and just was like this to me, like, you're not there. And that was painful, but it was karmic, and it was an incredible opportunity to make a choice for my soul.
Wow. I would love at some point, I don't have very many Freemason. There's a couple of friends of my mother who has passed away that I've never had that conversation. And I know it's very secretive and it's very protected, but
I don't know. I didn't know my father. I didn't know.
Wow.
And I was so transparent, right? I was so transparent and so naive, and I would share my delight, and, you know, and there were other things that happened in our past as children that were very dark, and they've come to the surface, and my parents tried to bury them, and they've come up a little bit, and they've done a really, you know, my brother's kind of like, he started to say things and he put a lid on things, and I'm younger, I'm 3 years younger than him, so I didn't remember, but I've had some remembering, particularly you know, in Savasana, I'll have these moments where I'm so relaxed, I can process a little bit more, and it's not really worth going there only so much as it helps me with forgiveness to myself, because I know the trauma that I experienced when I was really young really shut me down, and sometimes I felt like, what have I been doing? Why didn't I wake up? You know, why haven't I gotten on with my dharma? What have I been doing? And then I asked those questions, and then I'd be sort of shown only so much as my mind and body could handle at the time. It's because of these situations, this trauma, that held you in the place you were meant to be held, which was limited and shut down. And that's okay. You're here now. So forgive yourself and get on with what you're doing. Yeah, it's been interesting.
It is. It's so interesting. And the fact that, I mean, I'm sure and we'll talk about this later, but each of our chakra journeys, one of the things I want to talk about is the chakras that we need to keep revisiting over and over. We think that we work through a certain level, and then we realize, oh no, we got to go back.
Isn't yoga so beautiful? You know, I love yoga so much. I'm just so grateful. It brings me so much joy because it helps me with those layers. It helps so profoundly with those layers. It holds us so tenderly in this amazing dance with the twinkle in its eye of, like, you know, like, this is a game, this is only a yoga mat, you know, but it gets really intense at times. It gets really intense. It's such a beautiful practice.
So who introduced you to chakra psychology, and where did that aspect of the yoga journey happen for you?
I know this, it just got activated. It's kind of like, I at the beginning, yoga was double Dutch, and I was trying to find the neurology to understand it. Yet in my heart, I knew it. So whenever I could open my heart in the practice and stop berating myself for being so, you know, I did ballet for a very long time. So I was literally like this, and I've been coming back into center for years. And once I stopped berating myself and I could open my heart a little bit more, I started to really hear my own heart wisdom and my own soul wisdom. And to me, the chakras were just like, oh, I remember, oh, okay, all right, okay, I remember this. And then I was like, wow. When I had the store, I was creative. I easily found that chakras as a way to communicate to people, because they come in and they just want to they just want to relax. They would just want to sit and have a cup of chai or coffee or whatever, and they just wanted to have a moment of themselves. And I created an aromatherapy range with the chakras, and I just intuitively blended these aromatherapy essences just for each chakra, so I could take people over and say, hey, come over here and let's do some stuff with the olfactory. Let's just see what comes up. And I'd get them to smell each one, and then, oh, it's this one. And then I'd say, well, okay, well, this relates to this chakra, and this is maybe what you might be looking at the moment, and just leave them with that. And then they, sometimes they buy the oil and they work with it, and then they come back in again. I've been working with that oil and it's really helped with whatever. And then I'd sort of like try and ease them into a little bit more. And it was a really good tool. And so I found it quite intuitive for me. I had that base understanding. And so it just became really apparent to me that it's kind of like a base knowledge that we should have about our subtle energy body, and that it, just because I'd recalled it, many people needed to be introduced to it and taught it, because it had been so shut down and closed and hidden, the subtle body energy from so many people's lives. And
oh, for sure. Yeah, and I'm so glad that in this book you included the sense organs that are associated with the chakras, because that's not a teaching, that's not an awareness that a lot of people have.
No.
And that if we can, it's really important, and to understand. And I love that experience of going through and smelling all the essential oils and having that conversation with clients. And if we can begin to connect the sense organs to an awareness of other things that are connected to various chakras, it's just such a beautiful offering.
Yeah, that really worked. I mean, I made a chakra chocolate that we made together, a raw chocolate in a workshop, and I had an ingredient for each chakra, and we would go through and I'd say that this is the root chakra, and we put beetroot beetroot powder into the chocolate. And so you can use there's a chocolate recipe in this book, and you can use that recipe and add things to it. So I went all the way through and added an ingredient that related to each chakra and talked about the chakras to people as we made the chocolate. And then we ate the chocolate, and it was so ceremonial, and it really took people right through. I got them to meditate as we were doing it, and I got them right through each chakra, and it was like the taste. So we would sort of like taste whatever it was I was adding to the chocolate each time, and they would have that taste of it, and then we would have the smell. I even put an essential oil in the chocolate. I put a little bit of lavender in it, so it sort of gave them that whole, the higher vibration. So that was all this whole process, and watching people connect with themselves, through their senses again. So this was using the sense of all the senses basically to make the chocolate, like to touch it, to taste it, to look at it, and it really helped them tangibly. So I found food. I made chakra elixirs to drink, milkshakes. I made chakra balls, so these raw balls that were flavoured to go with each chakra, like very rooty, earthy, all the way to very light and bright. And so people really started to tangibly relate to their energy centres in sort of a much more sort of full embodiment of that understanding. So I found it a very useful tool. And I guess that's, when they kept asking me, will you write a book? Will you write a book? I'm going, not another book. But it helped them to understand themselves.
It's really the whole food thing too. And I often talk about this even when I'm doing readings with clients, is the relationship of particular foods to healing certain things, either whether it's a physical illness or an emotional illness. And I remember my first chakra intensive I went to with my teacher Shivani, and the importance of the foods we were eating for the chakra that we were focusing on was critical. And it was so beautiful. And I remember the month we were eating all these fresh greens and the green foods, and how even the color of the food we were eating was trying to balance with the chakra that we were activating at that time. And so it can be so basic, right? If you want to,
simple is better.
It really is. It
Mm.
really is. It doesn't have to be like, you don't need a huge chakra Bible. You don't need, you can start with really basic things. So,
Mm.
yeah.
That,
Um,
that relay is really vital. Like on the food, if you grow your own food, it will symbiotically connect with you and know what you need as well. And it can be as simple as basil or parsley or lavender, a plant, it's just one plant, and it can provide you the balance. I mean, the harmonizing effect of food and the intelligence of food. There's a place up here that I go to, which is part of our beautiful old growth kind of like hinterland. It's all very rainforesty with creek running through it, and it's leaf matter is so spongy, like you can really feel how much rotting material there is, and it's full of fungi. We have a lot of fungi up here. And I'm really of the belief that you don't force anything upon your body. So I don't take any substances that would trip me out of my meanness, out of my center. So I prefer to go with my body fully present, breathing very gently into those places. And I know there are thousands, if not millions, of spores in the air. And I just go and sit, right? And I let my body choose what it absorbs and what it gets rid of. And I know that I'm receiving the consciousness from that fungi, from that environment, without having to try and work out what dose my body needs already, because my body knows what it needs. And so it's a beautiful filter. So if I'm breathing pollution, my body's going to do everything it can to detoxify it and get it out of my system and make sure I don't really absorb it. And when I'm breathing in something very beautiful, it's going to let it permeate and open to it, like the salt water by the ocean, the seawater, the mist. It's going to just go, yeah, this is full of those minerals. This is really good. And it's full of the whale wisdom at the moment, or the dolphin's laughter. So breathe it in. And my body knows what to do with that, And so the more open your chakras are, the more you're going to be able to let all that beautiful goodness move through. So
yeah.
Food and air and we have hundreds of thousands of butterflies up here. Like all the stuff that is in the environment is so nourishing if you can get into the natural world, even just in a small garden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I think that's an issue for a lot of people. They don't live near the forest, or they don't live near the sea. And if you live in an urban environment, that's often a question: is how can you bring the natural environment into a small apartment building in a crowded city?
Yeah, and it's like going where my store was in a little village next to a rail line, in a very busy part of it. Like it was a busy place, and so you go to the farmers markets if you can, or you buy as fresh a produce as you can, or you go, make sure you do a journey sometimes to the countryside, or you just buy the best ingredients that you can, and just trust that there is a lot of intelligence in even one leaf of lettuce. There's a lot. And if you can just, whatever you can get, one blueberry, it doesn't matter. I really think smaller is more valuable than we realize sometimes. Even just a rose, a beautiful rose or something, and just meditate and absorb, just have a relay naturally by just appreciation. Nothing woo-woo, just like literally a flower, and just sit with it in appreciation, and you will absorb so much.
Yes. That actually reminds me of Andrew Weil. I think one of the first holistic practitioners that I ever read. And he was, I had an amazing medical doctor at that time. I was pregnant with my first child, and he introduced me to Andrew Weil. And that was one of his things, was to have fresh flowers in the home and to appreciate them. And it could be one flower. And then the other thing was the turning off the news at night, turning off the television, and disengaging from that over, that
I talk about that in the book, about lighting a candle and how do you eat, like what delightful nook do you sit in, and where do you have the ritual of this beautiful relationship that you're having, a love affair with the food that you're having, and how do you honor that and be grateful for the elements that have created that, and really just find this beautiful relay with everything that is in your life. Because if you have that beautiful heart open relay, something that is not in harmonic resonance with that, you won't want it. Like it'll be easier to turn off the news. It'll be easier to shut those things down, because the relay is difficult with those things. You'll feel that it's not flowing so easily as it is with a candle. Like a candle is far more engaging than the television if you want to sit with it.
Yeah.
It has so much value, just one candle, one stick of incense. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. So how do you see, so these are the cards for those of you that haven't seen my and this is a trimmed copy. The cards come with a border, a yellow border. How do you see these two items working together?
It's really a process of being with your own best friend. So imagining that this is what you perhaps can't say to yourself. So inquiring, what would you really like to say to yourself? And you'll generally have an aversion to something that's sweet, or something that's about taking responsibility to see something that maybe you don't want to see. And so you sit with it like a friend, and your own best friend, the upper room version of yourself, and be prepared to listen. So then either go to you can use the book like an oracle as well, where you can just actually open a page and work with it like an oracle. And quite a few people were doing that. I created the book before the oracles, and people were saying, hey, we use this like oracle cards. When are you going to do an oracle deck? And the publisher said, yeah, when are we? And I said, soon. But yeah, you can use it in a similar way. It's just that instead of going from the cards, you'll sort of get a bit to the card book, you'll get a bit more information per page. But I would play with them. If the way I tell anybody to do anything is just play. It's the only advice I generally have for people is play, right? Practice playing, be creative, play. There's no right or wrong. Like, what works for you. So just be brave and play. I find playing is the most difficult thing to do.
So why self-love?
That actually was titled, This is the Age of Aquarius. And the publisher read it and just went, that's not what the title is. This is about self-love. And I went, yeah, it is. Actually, you're right. It's just I see this as one of the same thing, but self-love is more translatable, because the Age of Aquarius is something that we're only beginning to understand. It's incredibly complex. This age is going to be amazing. And so self-love is more of an introduction to being present and starting to access our multidimensional nature. So the first part of it is if you can love yourself through each of your chakras, you'll actually then be grounded enough to be able to then sort of increase your perception, your intuitive perception around things. But you've really got to be able to sit very grounded in your body. And the only way to do that is to really love every aspect of yourself that hasn't been loved yet. So you don't have any aversion to being with yourself. Because we've, as you know, this year we've already had so much to process, and so the more we can sit with ourselves in our centre, the better we will be in these processes, because they're.
I sense there will be a long integration of this as well too. So once we actually get the signal we're fairly free and clear of COVID-19, there will be a lot of integration that needs to happen as well too.
There's going to be a lot of unwrapping, because there's so many gifts that we can't see, right?
Yeah.
It's almost going to be like unwrapping a gift day. And if you have an aversion to receivership, that's going to be very challenging. So we've launched all these rockets of desire very strongly, and co-creating launched rockets for what we want our future to look like. It's going to start coming to us. And if we have this guilt trip thing going on, we're just going to go, I'm not included in that. I've been naughty. I did the wrong thing once back in the day. So if we love ourselves, we'll go, yeah, actually, I want to be included. I deserve to be included. I'm up front and centre. I'm going to be here creating alongside everyone else, because the opportunities are just going to be immense that we're going to get. There's so many clever, imaginative souls that have got all these ideas they've been percolating all year, and they're just going to pop.
It's going to be amazing. So for those of you that are trying to find this book online, it is sold out, and it is being a new version of this book. Second edition is coming out, which I'll get a call to address, as well as an accompanying journal. So there'll be 2 new publications coming out shortly. So the first question for you, Akal, is, one, is the second edition going to be any different? Is it bound differently? Is it exactly the same size, and so forth? And then what does the journal look like, and how does the journal interact with the book?
It's the same size, so they sit together, and it's same size as in the dimensions, but it's a few less pages, and it works through the chakras again. There's more poetry, but then there's also some very direct mantras, and I speak very directly on pages as prompts to keep people on facing what might be coming up for them in each chakra. And there's lots of room to write, and I encourage, and there's lots of new art in it as well, but I encourage people to treat this as their own book. So I encourage drawing anywhere, drawing over my pictures, adding to my pictures, collaging on top, making it very personal, playing with it. So for me, that's vital to, it's like in a yoga class, a teacher gives you the gift of the class, you have to make it personal for it to be really resonating with you. And so that, I think that permission is really important, that a lot of people might look, I do a lot of art, I'm quite prolific. I wouldn't like to hear anyone feeling as if their art wasn't valuable no matter what it looked like. I think all creative expression is very, very valid, and very beautiful. And so I would want people to feel like they have the space. And I know that the pages have a lot of my stuff on it, but there is room to put a lot of personal slant to anything, and that's what I give at the beginning, is permission to be inspired to go from there and play. So there's blank pages and there's lined pages, so you can draw in it and write in it and stick in it and do whatever you want. I hope that's what people will do with it, and use it as a tool for play and delight, while they're facing stuff. Because to me, the Saturn thing coming this year at us, the Saturn, Pluto and all that stuff, I mean, to me, Saturn means truth and beauty, not so much restriction. I think truth is change, and change is stability, and I feel like it's very beautiful as well. And so to see it that way, I'm hoping that people start to see the restrictions as truth of a situation, of just how far ahead we were of ourselves, and the beauty of being given the gift of being held in a different place where we're able to recenter, and what comes from that, the changes that come from that.
How would you, a lot of people don't have the courage, or there's a what I want to say, there's a tremendous amount of courage that is needed to do this work.
Yeah, no, right.
And so
with another.
Yeah, with another. That's your advice? Do it with another?
Someone to play with.
Yeah.
And that means coming out of your shell, and that means being seen. I mean, the book I'm working on at the moment is actually about sacred union and the importance of finding our bonding pairs. You and I are doing a bonding pairing at the moment where we're coming together, and it's only in this short space of time, but it's very valuable. Now, whether we see each other again doesn't matter. You let the bonding pairs happen. It doesn't matter if it's a hello in the street. It doesn't matter if it's someone that acknowledges you. It's a bonding pair. Let it happen, and let it permeate into your very core. Oh, I belong with this other person. We kind of like, we're doing this, and it's feeling good. And oh wow, we created something. We created a shift. We created a healing. We created an opening. We opened a window for each other, and we're looking at a different view now. And I think the bonding pairs are where the miracles happen, where our perspective, because we sit with another person and we hear their stories, we look out a different window together, and we see another lot of opportunities that maybe we hadn't seen before. And then we go, that's great. I love that view. Hold that memory. Make that a memory that becomes a pathway in the brain. Let some of these memories that are trauma dissolve, and make this new pathway by finding another bonding pair and letting yourself do that.
And I see that. I see that as well as the ripple effect of that bonding pair that we can't see three-dimensionally.
Mm.
Right. So
It's
the people
strong.
that observe even the people just observing these unions, it's pretty.
Permission to love, permission to love, permission to love, which I feel we should give ourselves, because that's really what we're here for.
Wow. Okay, that's great. I want to ask you about the artist meeting the yogi, and do they always flow together?
Well, the artist annoys the yogi a lot, because the yogi is on the yoga mat and the artist goes, I just want to write that down. And the yogi's like, get back here. No, I've got to go. That's a good idea. I want to write it down. Yeah, it's a dance, really. I'm quite idiosyncratic, so it's okay. I'm used to it. There's a lot of kind of contrast in who I am, and I'm very changeable. So, yeah, I sort of, everything's art to me. So it's the art of yoga, the art of nurturance, the art of self-love, the art of self-devotion, the art of eating, the art of making love, the art of communication, the art of conversation, the art of parenting. It's all art to me. So art is just, art dominates, I think. But then art is union with myself. So that's yoga. So it kind of all blends together.
And does your yoga mat look like this, or do you have a solid color yoga mat?
I have an awesome yoga mat. It's really slippery. It's a hemp yoga mat. And when I first got it, I was really offended because I was like, what is going on? But it just showed me it's a mind-body yoga mat, which is very sensory, and if you don't actually put yourself properly grounded on the mat, it's not like some of my old grippy mats where I could cheat a little bit. There's no cheating on this yoga mat. So my yoga mat is in this room. Actually, we're renting a house at the moment, and we're building another house with an actual yoga shala. So we'll have a little studio.
Beautiful.
And we are building, we have a mountain here that looks like a pyramid. It's stunning, and I know it is a stargate. It's really quite beautiful. And our yoga shala has French doors, and it looks out on that mountain. And so we'll be practicing watching the stars and the sun come up. And I get up at 3 o'clock every day. So yeah, I'll have that whole nightscape with the moon and all the stars and everything, and then the sun coming up to practice. And yeah, so that's and the birds, a lot of birds around here. So my yoga practice, at the moment, it's kind of in transition, but generally it's in a room. I don't practice outside very much in terms of the asana and that, but I practice other aspects of yoga outside all the time. The garden's like yoga for me.
And is your partner a yogi?
Yes, we practice together.
Mm.
Yeah, it's been kind of imperative. I think he was either going to come on board with the journey and understand me, or he was going to not understand me, because I go very deep into my practice. And so going together is a real honour. But it's kind of a dharmic thing with us. We've got something that we understand. The ego doesn't always understand it, but on a heart soul level we understand it, and it always brings us back into our self-devotion and our spiritual union. So yeah, I'm very blessed with that.
So when you met, you weren't on the same path?
No.
Okay, that's interesting.
And we noticed that we'd done this with each other. We lived in the same city, but we'd been in the same places but different times. So we've been going like this for years. And then we met on the internet, which was about the only place we were ever going to meet. So it's really quite interesting.
So tell us about Frida Kahlo.
Isn't she amazing? When I was painting those pictures, she did it for me. She's just, her energy is amazing. Like, she's really holding space for us at the moment, and really holding space for the going through trauma and transmuting that through the heart, and imperfection not being an issue. Actually, loving that so much it becomes beautiful. And yeah, she's stunning. Amazing artist. She's inspired me forever.
So she came to you through a dream or through a download or through?
Always kept coming up in my life. And then I'd actually we had some soaps in our store that were wrapped, and I wrapped one of them inspired by Frida, and I think another one I'd done love with pictures of her on them, and I'd painted her in other ways. And the publisher, I had them in my studio. I used to consult people in Byron. My publisher came and saw the soaps and went, "They should be reading cards." And I went, "You're right," because I could say way more than I can on one decorative label. So it led me to go deeper with her again. I keep finding more layers with her. She was a fascinating human being, as much as I can find out about her.
She's in this book as well too. This book.
Yeah. I've painted her in there as well. I just love studying her. Just her face. I mean, in talk about grace. You look at the physical pain that she would have been through, right? And you look at her face, and this was way back before Photoshop. You look at her eyes, you look at her smile, you look at her face, right? You look at her focus and her determination and her wildness and her rebellion, wearing national costume and flowers in her hair. I challenge people to wear flowers in their hair. It's a challenge in our culture to wear flowers. You try wear flowers in your hair for a month every day. It's a practice.
Have you tried?
Fresh flowers, it's a practice, right? It's a practice.
Mm-hmm.
It takes you very deep into respect of nature, into sourcing nature, into a relay with nature, into your own beauty, into holding space in very cold environments where you're very colourful and vibrant and alive and fragrant, and it's an amazing thing. So if you do that even for a day, you will understand her psyche of her soul to hold that space for herself. It's quite beautiful.
And that's part of the Indian culture as well too, is that the conscious adornment. And the conscious adornment is part of the heart. It's part of the heart space. It's part of embracing the feminine. It's part of embracing and connecting with the sacred feminine. The practice of the bindi, putting that on every day, and how if you're married, it's a certain way, and if you're not married, it's a certain way. But the whole art and devotion and choosing to wear 16 different levels of adornment or whatever it is you're doing, it's really a practice.
16 layers of the woman and her complexity, I think it's so vital, and I want to embody that. I've gone into, recently I've been dyeing a lot of, this is avocado, so I've been using plants to dye fabric, and I've been dyeing my hair with indigo. So it's the most amazing experience, just the pure plant powder and using that like you would henna, but using indigo, and what it brings to you, that whole process, and what that plant indigo speaks to you. And it's just quite fascinating. And it was missing from my mother. Had very short hair. She still does, really super, like a very masculine hair, very masculine presentation, and then would sometimes do the feminine, but in an apologetic way. Like I've fussed too much about myself, or I shouldn't give you know what I mean? I'm very sad.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So are you able to harvest indigo where you are?
I've just bought some seeds, and I'm going to grow it on our new land. So there's an Australian indigo, but I'm also wanting to get the Indian and Japanese indigo. But they all grow here, and there is stories of the Egyptians visiting here, right, in this land. There's hieroglyphics around these areas and different things, and also the Indians. So there's kind of a hidden bonding pairs between different nations. Like there's more to our history than we know about how people came together and shared things. This whole region through here is full of ibis, these sacred ibis birds. It's quite amazing. Very Egyptian feeling. We've got this pyramid, and it's quite stunning. And the blue lotuses, I have fresh lotuses when they're growing. There's a woman I grow at the local farmers market. She has like 18 hectares of lotuses growing in this lake.
Wow.
And she goes out on a paddle boat thing, and she cuts them and collects them and then brings them to the market. And then she makes a tincture from them and oils from them, and she dries them, and they're the most beautiful blue, the softest blue, and has them as a tea. So you have them as a lotus tea. And just that experience in itself has really lifted. And talk about opening your intuition. Like that. That's what indigo does, the blue. I've been dyeing my clothes indigo, and when you wear the pure plant indigo, I mean, if you look at the history of indigo, and when synthetics came into fabrics, right, when it went into synthetic indigo was when the working class jeans were made indigo. But before that, the blue coats in the Revolution, Napoleon, the navy blue, that's all indigo. Egyptian mothers for eons would make indigo scarves and lay their babies on them to open their intuition because it works. And so when this got taken away and was replaced with synthetics, it poisoned the pineal gland instead of opening it. And it runs deep through our cultures. The synthetic dyes have really done a lot in the fashion industry to change our perception, our subtle energy fields, and it really affects us, the colours. So I have this beautiful feeling that, in Australia here, the gum leaves, they dye things the most beautiful. I don't know if you can see my trousers, like soft, buttery yellows. And so that comes just from bark and indigo, bark and leaves of the gum trees. And that's sort of the solar plexus, which is this chakra here in Australia. And then indigo comes from other areas where blue, where intuition, where and the throat chakra as well. And then the heart chakra, you think about Glastonbury and the greens of all of those places. And you just imagine the ancients sharing and trading their colours and their chakra openings together, right?
It gives me chills just thinking about it. I was recalling an experience I had. I lived in Japan for the first time for 3 years, and being somewhere where it was of the tradition, the indigo dyeing was part of that. And they still had, on a smaller scale, were making handkerchiefs, yukata, other garments as well too, from hand dyed indigo.
I can guarantee you, if you practice it, it'll change something. Like even if you find because you can dye with any sort of plant in your region. It'll open some chakra, it'll open some energy field in your body, particularly if you wear it. Like, it's beautiful.
I'll have to get out. I have one indigo dyed yukata. I'll have to get it out and start wearing it. It's just beautiful. Oh, there's your doggy.
Yeah,
all right. So do you have connection to Islanders? This Let Go deck has such an island feel to it.
I think so, but I can't explain it. It's more Lemurian for me. I don't have any relatives in my lineage that I know of, but I've actually been to Hawaii a couple of times for work, but it was completely a soul journey and very much connected with the energy there. And the energy here has got very much the tropical, like the water here is just aqua. It's so amazing, and just the whole thing. I mean, this is quite a famous surfing area, and it's one of the areas is very much a longboard surfing area. So it's very much that sort of like palm tree, sort of swaying, laid back kind of feel. So yeah, I just have a deep resonance with that. I can't really explain it, except it's more of a soul thing. Like, it really resonates with me.
I have a random question. So your work is very feminine.
Yeah.
How can a soul who identifies as male learn, embrace, embody, journey with your work?
I would like to think they can find a female to take their hand, and that's what my next book is about, the sacred practice of spiritual union in many different levels, which can just be plutonic, going further into a much deeper relationship. But this is the women are more powerful, and the way I perceive it is that if you think about the way we are, so our inner masculine is very difficult to get to come to the surface in a way that isn't aggressive. Like, it's really our inner masculine is really just crystalline, clear, single, you know, to get a woman to be single-minded and to be singly pointed towards something, which is challenging. But we can do that with working with a man, because we can understand that if we can work with a man that's in his power and teach us that. And I think men are such amazing teachers, and I think they're so beautiful. And so when a woman works with a man, if she can allow the man to be in such a place where he has so much trust and he is genuinely not being, there's no divisiveness, there's no power games, there's no resentment, there's no bitterness, there's nothing controlling, and the dark mother kind of energy has created a lot of these feeling and wounds in men. But if a man can actually find a woman to befriend and help him to surrender, his inner feminine is going to come forward and blow the woman away, because the woman is going to learn about her inner feminine in a way that doesn't have the neurosis of I'm fat, I'm stupid, I'm this, I'm that, because the man's inner feminine has not been affected in that way, because he doesn't relate to a lot of the things that women might get from the culture. He's more upfront taking on the masculine stuff. So his inner feminine in a lot of ways is more pure, more able to just receive the beauty and the surrender and the pleasure of being a female, and the sensitivity, the multi-layers of sensitivity. And as a man manages to, I talk about this as like an alchemical process. The man is like a knight who is so precious and soft underneath this shield. When the shield begins to melt with kind of the liquid love of the heart, and it starts to melt, the feminine can still be protected by this auric, subtle energy field, but it's not hard. So the man can open his intuition, he can open his sensitivity, but he's such a delicate flower that he needs to be held with so much respect and no divisiveness and no resentment for him to be able to surrender that deeply. And it's a really deep process. And so I think women need to go first in this process, so they can, because they're the more powerful, I believe they're the more powerful of the sexes. We have been given the creator energy, right? The pure creative energy to actually create life itself. And so when we can sit content, no resentment, no need to control, we can really relax ourselves. And then the males can relax and be very receptive to this work, because it will be natural to them, because that is what they are inside, you know. And it's almost like as a soul, to be a woman, you had to go through that point of really bringing the female to the surface repeatedly to be able to then create life itself. It's a very challenging thing to do that. So, and it takes a lot of, I think, practice, a lot of lifetimes to get to that place. And so, yeah, I really feel like I you know, my partner's great for sort of like reminding me of things and saying things in a different way. And, you know, it's like, sometimes it's like he's the rose amongst the thorns. Right? Switch it around.
So Jonathan has a very, I'd like to read Jonathan's comment, but something don't want to forget this thought. So I also want to address those souls who do not identify with a gender, or who are transitioning from one gender to another. How do these teachings relate to those?
It's this, I would come back to, forget about masculine and feminine. I think androgyny is actually more of a pure state, but it's a difficult one for our minds to get into. So we can get to the universal mind. Androgyny is not an issue, and neither is the sexes. So it gets back down to a very, very personal thing. What is your balance between nourishment and meditation in your life? So forget about masculine and feminine, and forget about hot and cold and yin and yang. How are you working with the earth as your grounding energy, the mother energy, and how are you birthing yourself in every moment with the dance between nourishment and meditation.
Perfect. Yeah.
And just play with that. It's just our minds, you know, it depends what tools, like if you really identify with a masculine or feminine, that's just a chosen tool and another gift that you have, like being able to draw or like being able to cook or make things. It's just a way of expressing the soul, and it's just a gift that you come in with. And sometimes you can have a gift and go, well, I've got as much as I want out of that, and now I'm ready to actually rebirth through a fire birth, and I'm ready to now explore the masculine, or I'm ready now to explore the feminine with what I've learned up until now. And there's no right or wrong with that. It's very personal, very personal.
And so we see many of the enlightened beings, the deities, drawn as half feminine and half masculine. And often I find too that working with clients who are either transitioning or they're non-binary, that there's a deep, deep soul understanding of some, I don't know, it's such a higher level it's such a higher level frequency.
They're such teachers, I think. They're very good teachers. People that have that, you know, they've really understood that deeply on a soul level. They're beautiful teachers for us to let go of a lot of our self-limitations. I think it's quite amazing. We have a lot to learn from each other. That we all have so much to teach each other, but yeah, definitely very, very relevant teachings, the getting out of the splitting. And that's why, yeah, like I said, I'm preferring to look at the two aspects of being human, supported by earth, nourishment and meditation, and playing with those two things, and forget about the colours so specifically, black and white, male and female, yin and yang, like a little bit more sophisticated than that, and a little less bound, like more unbound love.
Okay. Yeah. Would you like to read Jonathan's comment aloud?
What does Akal think about two spirits? I am a two-spirit in a male body, but I've always been one of the women invited to many ladies' nights. Awesome. I would just say keep playing with that. What do I think about two spirits? I think the twin flame, the bonding pairs, is expressed in many different ways. And, I've never been able to find a corner in my heart. Like I've never been able to find a wall, a corner, like it's just infinite, right? So why should it just dance? It's just a dance. So no rules. I think if your heart has the capacity to hold space for two spirits, like fantastic, that's amazing. It's wonderful. It's great. I'm going to see you in the next book. Thank you. I'm working on it. Get to work.
It's just, and like I said earlier on, this is courageous work. Actually, we were saying this privately before I went live, and that is to begin this journey, to have the courage to explore these deep teachings and levels, and to allow the subconscious patterns to come to the surface, and to sit with them and process them and integrate them, and to begin to just journey through them, requires space, time, courage, love, so many things. And if we are lost in the busyness of an urban culture or our work or anything, it's very, very challenging. So to give yourself the gift of an hour a week, or a week a year, or whatever you can give, is only going to bring so much to your day, your life, your week. And I don't know how you feel about this. Like we were talking earlier, like what is, if somebody can't manage this much, then what's your suggestion for, this much?
Well, if they've got the courage to buy that book, just do one page at a time and read it wherever it opens, and then just just put it on the shelf. If it, like, I've got books that I don't process in the now, but I know that them sitting on my shelf, I'm absorbing their wisdom the same way you do with crystals. So that's a way of breaking it down. Don't pressurize yourself. There was a time when I was working in advertising that I thought it was outrageous that I would spend more than half an hour on exercise, and only 3 times a week. And now I get up at 3 o'clock and I would work through. My partner finishes sadhana, so I go 3 till 6. He gets up a little later than me, and then he goes to work at about 6:45, and then I go back for about another, 45 minutes, and I don't really end. So I like 3 or 4 hours a day minimum of spiritual practice. I could never have imagined that, and I didn't do that in one go. That's taken decades. Like, it's been an unfurling, at least a decade and a half to get to that place. And it's been incredibly painful at times, particularly in things that I saw as a result of that about my family, where I was completely obviously on another planet, and probably thankfully, because I wasn't ready to quite land up until, when I've been able to face what went on. And it's fine. It's fine. We're all in this together. And so I'm only where I am because of the teachers. That it's so many teachers in my life, in so many different aspects of my life. So many. I mean, I'm so grateful for yoga teachers like yourself. Like, it's such important work, and yet so unrecognized in so many ways. But people are doing this, and it's making a difference. And it's even the yoga teachers out there that have one student turn up, or a full class one week, and then where's everyone gone the next? Trust me, the students are still there. They're still there through the song lines, through the grid of love, receiving the teachings. They're still coming to them, even though it feels like. And so don't be hard on yourself if you do one yoga class a month, or you do half a yoga class and I've turned into a puddle so many times on my yoga mat where and I cannot move. It's still yoga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Smelling a flower is still yoga. Smelling a flower is still part of that self-devotion, right? So it's whatever it looks like is so okay. And we'll get there. We are getting there. We are doing it. It's okay. Like, if we can take away the death as philosophy in our culture, because the death as philosophy is so strong. I mean, it's one of the things I'm here to lift, which is a big challenge. We're at the beginning of lifting the death as philosophy, but it's crazy. And it's very deep, and it's very thick. So it's just break it down little by little. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that if we associate a yoga practice with getting to your mat an hour a day, it's so much more than that. And you said about not kicking yourself for not doing that, but to congratulate yourself and honoring yourself for taking a moment with a flower or a bird or your garden, because that is as much yoga is as even more so than the physical practice. And so to really understand what yoga means is a journey in itself.
Oh, so
and I picked up this mala. This is a mala that is far from me, because this mala came to me at a time where I was at a very challenging place in India, dealing with all kinds of my own stuff that was coming up. And there's so much energy and medicine in this mala. It's got nothing to do with the crystals. It's not a piece of jewelry. It's just this piece of energy that reminds me of to go back and to keep digging deep, and to just to be with it.
Yeah.
Be with it. Yeah. So if any of you have questions, any other questions, let us know. And we will be signing off shortly. Everybody loves the doggies.
Yeah.
It's been an hour. And so your next book, when is that coming out?
Good question. The journal that goes with self-love is coming out in November, as far as I know, and that should be in America as well, and probably you should be able to get that too. And the reprint of self-love, they come out together. So they said October, November, so it's very soon. And then I have a lot of projects that I'm doing. I've since all this happened, I've really, with COVID and being much more in a community, I'm doing a lot more community work with a lot of younger people around here. And I've set down roots enough here to be present enough and connected enough to do that. So I'm doing that work, but I am writing another book which is called Earth Song, and it's the sacred art of spiritual union of in all many ways, but it's something that kind of goes on from that.
Are your children's books still available?
I don't think so. There was one that was the Enchanted Doll's House. It was a pop-up book, so it was really quite, it was everywhere, and it was quite successful. And it was a book where it was literally a pop-up, and you looked in, and there were houses from different eras, and you would look into that. There was questions to look in and see what was going on. But the whole concept behind that was to really get grandparents to sit down with grandchildren and share with each other and to be very present together. It was about bringing people together with a book to sit and look at humans in a sort of look at the journey that humans undertake together and the adventure that they have. The hearth and the home is very close to me. Like, I really feel like we're homemakers as humans, and that we should give ourselves to make. This book that I'm writing it's really about finding our Indigenous hearts, because we've just travelled so far. And we all want to be home, right? And so connecting with our Indigenous heart, it just starts to dissolve a lot of those problems that we've had with the amount of changes and shifts and where we've come from, and it's so messy. But if we can connect back to our Indigenous hearts and then connect to another with that pure heart that actually belongs on the earth wherever we are, and put roots down wherever we are and just go from there with another, I think that will be a very healing journey for humanity. The bonding pairs, just whoever you can get together with at whatever point, and even at this distance, we're both grounding ourselves, right? And then so we're connecting through the song lines. The song lines can be really like the meridians in our body. They can be opened up a lot more, and we can start communicating a lot more across the globe and healing through them, singing to each other, singing our love songs to each other. And just even, I walk the song lines a lot here. I walk along the shoreline for many years when I first moved up here, just download ancient songs and light songs, and I would just sing. I would just go and sing, and I know they're heard. And someone can walk along the beach and hear them, and they don't know where they come from, and we can sing to each other that way. Like, just walk the land and sing, and just enjoy the beauty that we see, whatever big and small. Doesn't matter if you're in the city. There's always a butterfly, a bird, a tree, a leaf, a flower. Like, just sing to it. And then we're all connected that way, right? So we can, that's a way that we can access this work. Let it kind of like be permeating, that there's a space for love, and there's a space for beauty, and there's a space for home, and let ourselves enjoy each other that way. Because we all really, a lot of us really want the same thing. Very simple. At the end of the day, we're really
not complicated. And I'm sure we all do that, looking at the moon or the stars.
Yeah.
Send a message through that way. Jonathan asked if you are going to create another oracle deck.
Possibly. I'm under contract to do another couple of the mini reading cards. But yeah, anyone wants to email me with a request for an oracle to give me an idea. I really like working with meeting what people are looking for. So yeah.
Good.
I was contemplating doing something around the art of the bed chamber, which is more of an ancient Taoist thing, but ways of actually exploring coming together with two bodies, however they are, and enjoying that in full presence and with a bit of fun. Because I think there's a bit much guilt and shame going on, and we should be able to have a bit more pure fun with each other, like very purest fun, like really simple, straightforward, intimate, ecstatic fun, because that's what our bodies are for, ultimately. We should have fun with them.
We should have fun. And we should give ourselves permission to be joyful and feel joy.
Yeah.
And pleasure. Yeah.
with each other, yeah, in whatever way, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect place to end and to just all contemplate joy. You know, to feel joy and to find some joy and love and warmth in your heart and in all of those around you. Oh, I did have one more question. So, how do your children feel and experience all of this?
One of them's been sort of with me on the whole journey, and the other one's been sort of a bit, there's sort of a bit more divisiveness have gone on with her. So she's sort of backwards and forwards with the traditional aspect of the family, but she's kind of sitting a bit more comfortably with me now. It's just been giving her the space to just, and she's older, she's 25, so she's sort of like, you know, she's had a really interesting journey, but yeah, it's okay. I'm the weird one in the family, so as long as I just take that space, it's all right. But I work with my other daughter, the younger one, she's 22. We're actually doing things together. She has an ethical clothing label, and we're doing things, and I'm very passionate about supporting that and supporting young people in this area to have a platform to be creative. So I get the great privilege of, she lives with me still, we work together on these projects, and we also feed off each other. She inspires me and vice versa. So it's very beautiful. I feel very blessed with that. And it's been bumpy at times, but it's real. It's great. Mm-hmm. I don't drag them into the publicity like I used to when I was doing children's books, though.
No, yeah. They have their own, and that's a whole other conversation. And I was stimulated. I'm going to be talking about this, and that is the karma and the patterns that we choose to enter into with our family.
Oh yeah,
right. And then we have our own work, and the work with the land. And it's so much. It's such a big, wide, brilliant topic. And so we will carry on with some of these other thoughts at another time. But I really want to thank you, Akal. It was just a pleasure being with you today. So thank you. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me, and thank you to everyone that's been here. Good luck with your journeys. We're all in it together. It's okay.
Yes, it is. So I will see you all soon, and I wish you well, and namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.